Welcome to Biff's Mystery Theater. I have many tales to tell you. Ghost stories, murder stories, and tales that will make your bones chill. Join me, won't you? For Theater of the Mind, where you always have the best seat in the house. Now close your eyes and turn off the lights.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. From the Black Museum, a repository of death. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames which houses Scotland Yard is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a piece of carbon paper, a tin ashtray, a broken teacup, all are touched by murder. Now here's a woman's powder puff, faded pink. We'll open the glass case and take it out. There you are, sir. Perhaps Madame would like to take it. You draw back. The lace is pitiful and torn. Across the puff itself is an ugly stain. Once it was dark red, but its progress through the biological laboratory has left it bleached and pitted, where small areas have been teased out and examined under the microscope.
This sample belongs to blood group 3.
Are you sure?
Wait. Group 1 is here as well. Blood groups 1 and 3. That means there were 2 victims.
Yes, the faded pink powder puff was used to gag 2 victims before they were brutally murdered. That's why it can be seen today in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum. In just a moment, you will hear The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. Now, The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Well, here we are in the Black Museum. Yes, beyond these stone walls, London throbs and is alive, but within these rooms, there's silence and death. It's very quiet. Come with me. Under the frieze of death masks, the masks of criminals of bygone days, suspended grimly under the ceiling, we pass slowly along the rows of murder exhibits, not always frightening in themselves, but terrifying when considered in relation to their history. They are matchbox. Here's a nail file. Each exhibit marked with the names of the killer and the victim. But our objective now is the powder puff. As it lies on the palm of my hand, let's turn back the clock and meet the man who used it for a grim purpose. His name, Richard William Hyson. The time, dawn on the morning of Friday, October the 18th, 1946. The place, Pentonville Prison.
This is it, boys?
Take it easy, Hyson. You've got about a couple of hours.
Give me a cigarette. Oh, thanks. You're too kind. Oh, this is 20 days we've had in here, isn't it?
Yes, 20 days.
You won't forget me, will you?
No, we won't forget you.
Before I go, you must remind me to compliment the management. The food's been excellent. I can thoroughly recommend it to future guests. I've only one complaint.
What's that, Hyson?
The execution shed is too close. I'm sure I could hear the hangman practicing with a sandbag last night.
Nonsense. Here, have a wash.
After I've finished my cigarette.
All right. No hurry.
No hurry. 2 hours to go. 2 hours in which to reminisce. I think I was right not to see my mother and father.
They wanted to see you.
Well, that's because they remembered me as I was. Big, blonde, and handsome. But they never really knew me. I nearly killed a girl when I was 16.
Did you?
Yes. It was at a kid's party. After playing Postman's Knock, we got tired of that. And I suggested we should play
The popular parlor game of murder. Somebody commits a crime in the dark, and the rest of the party are supposed to discover the culprit. Young Richard Hyson entered into the spirit of the thing with zest.
Jean, you come with me.
All right, Dick.
Let's go upstairs.
What shall we do?
Oh, never mind. I'll tell you. Let's go up while nobody's looking. Come on. Here's a box room. Let's go in.
No, I'd rather not. Let's hide here.
In you come.
No, Dick.
Don't be afraid. It's only a game. I'm putting this handkerchief in your mouth.
Oh, let me go.
Now I'm squeezing your throat. Shut up!
Jean, where are you? Oh, there you are. Why, Dick. But, Jean, what's happened? Oh, he's killed her.
It was fortunate for young Dick Hyson the girl was not dead, but she was hurt and badly frightened. The warders in the death cell listened to Hyson's prelude to murder in silence, but perhaps their eyes betrayed their emotions.
You're shocked, aren't you? Oh, give me the towel, will you? Oh, thank you so much. You make a good batman. Have you been in the services?
I was in the Navy.
Oh, interesting. That was the only service I was never in. I began in the Air Force.
Yeah, so I believe. Yeah, better start dressing now.
I enlisted as a pilot. Fighter pilot. They gave me a commission, of course.
Of course. Here's your tie.
Yeah, thank you. I had only one complaint about the Air Force.
Yeah? What was that?
The pay. So I volunteered to take over the mess funds. Well, that helped. So did the uniform.
You better put on a clean collar.
Oh, I'm allowed a collar, am I? Oh. That uniform certainly pulled him in.
Pulled who in?
Well, who do you think? Remember the case of the Air Force girl found in the burnt-out car in Suffolk?
So you were responsible for that, were you? How did it happen?
Now you're interested. Listen, boys, come on, gather round. I'll tell you about it before it's too late.
Richard Hyson could never bear to be anything but the center of attraction. He could never tolerate a disinterested audience. Even in his last hours, he had to hold his listeners. But how much of the truth he told will never be known. Nevertheless, a pretty girl of 21 had been found dead in a car close to the station where he'd been, looking after the mess funds 5 or 6 years previously. And he told his warders how he had stopped her on a lonely road while she was driving a staff car.
want a lift?
Oh, that's very nice of you. I'm going into Ipswich.
Oh, so am I. Jump in.
What's your name?
Parker, sir.
And your first name?
Joyce, sir.
I'm Richard Hyson. You can call me Dick, and drop the sir.
Yeah, I think I've met you before.
Oh, I've seen you, too. At the Commandant.
Yes, it might have
Well,
been.
it was. I've been thinking about you ever since, Joyce.
Oh, I don't believe a word of it, Mr. Hyson.
Dick. Look out, watch that bend.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, never mind, sweetheart. I've got nerves of steel. But I'd be happier if you let me take over.
Yes, perhaps it would be a good idea. Thanks. Oh, don't bother to get out. I'll get out my side. Well, I must say it is nice to be driven for a change.
Good. What are your plans after you drop the car into workshop?
As a matter of fact, I'm feeling rather good today. You see, it's my birthday, and my mum sent me a very nice present this morning.
Well, many happy returns. And how old are you?
21.
Congratulations. She's 21 today. 21. What did they send you?
Money.
Oh, that's always the most sensible gift.
Yes, it is, isn't it? I say, are we on the right road?
Yeah, I think so.
We're not, you know. We're right off the road now. Hey, stop! Hey, I thought you were supposed to be a good driver.
So I am. Come here.
No, you've made a mistake. I'm not that sort of a girl. Let me go.
Yeah, you would you?
You're mad.
Where's the money?
Well, here, take it. Now let me go, please.
Oh, no.
Please let me go. I promise I won't tell. Ah!
Hyson had no intention of giving his unfortunate victim the opportunity to tell. He had exceptionally large, powerful hands, his fingers being an inch across the joints. There is no doubt that poor Joyce Parker was helpless in his grip. And when it was all over, he put her behind the steering wheel, started the car, and set fire to it. When the flames had a hold, he jumped off the running board from where he'd been steering, and the blazing car, together with its pathetic little passenger, plunged on until it crashed over the edge of a gravel pit. The crime had every appearance of being an accident, and Richard Hyson went to the picture alone that night, all expenses paid. He hadn't yet left behind any vital clues, such as might be seen today in the Black Museum.
In just a moment, we will continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
We returned to number 2 death cell in Pentonville Prison.
I was cashiered from the Air Force quite soon, and they found out about the mess accounts. So I joined the Army as Paul Colton.
Yes, we know about that.
I built up a new history for myself, and being a pretty useful type, I got a commission.
That was in the early days of the war.
Yes. I probably wouldn't have got a commission later on. They started going into too much detail.
How long did you keep the Army commission?
About a year. I lost it in the Middle East. That was really rather amusing. I was visiting the mess at HQ when I heard the general talking about selling his car before he was posted to a new command. That gave me an idea. Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
My name's Colton, sir. I'm sorry to hear you're leaving the command. I wonder whether you might be thinking of disposing of that private car of yours.
Do you want to buy it?
Yes, sir.
You'd better have a word with my ADC. Smithers. Yes, sir? Mr. Colton here wants to buy the car. Sort it out with him, will you? Of course, sir.
And Second Lieutenant Colton, alias Hyson, wrote out a check for £100, which was exactly £100 more than he had in the bank.
That check bounced quicker than a golf ball. But I'd sold the old man's car even quicker and spent what I got for it.
So, bang went commission number 2,
Yes, they cashiered me. Which I told them I thought was rather hard on a first offender.
First offender?
Well, in the army, yes. But instead of coming home, I dropped off the ship in South Africa. I joined the army there. And believe me, it wasn't long before I got myself posted to England. That meant London for me. And those certainly were the days.
Don, I'd like you to meet Muriel. Donald Smithers, Muriel Girton.
Oh, hello there. And what are you drinking, Muriel?
Scotch and water, thanks.
Yeah, tough baby, eh? Well, good for you. Hi, Stuart. A very large scotch and a very little water for a pretty girl.
You're quite a son of a gun.
Believe me, ma'am, I've had to be.
What are all those medals on your chest?
Oh, Distinguished Service Order.
And this one, I know. The Distinguished Flying Cross.
Right, baby.
I don't know these two.
Oh, the Croix de Guerre. I got it flying with the Free French, and that's the OBE, Order of the British Empire.
My, you're a hero. You must have a drink on me.
Donald Smithers, alias Paul Colton, alias Richard Hyson, had made the first vital mistake, which was to lead him to the scaffold. Needless to say, he was not entitled to any of those decorations. And he had sewn the ribbon of the OBE in the wrong place on his tunic, and although he was still a captain in the South African Air Force, he was wearing the uniform of a lieutenant colonel. These points were noticed by an observant officer in the Royal Air Force who passed the information on to the security police. A rapid checkup followed, and Hyson was court-martialed and cashiered for the third and last time. Now he lived on women. During one short period, he was engaged to be married to no fewer than 9, and each one financed him to a greater or lesser degree.
And that took quite a bit of staff work, keeping them apart. But there was one I quite liked, Doreen Winston.
You'd better get on with your breakfast.
Yes, time flies. Doreen was a honey. Somehow I never managed to get her alone for any time. Pass the salt, will you? Thank you. I shouldn't have bought her that powder puff.
You made a mistake there, Hyson. They all do.
What do you mean, they? I'm unique. Remember that. The night I gave her the puff, we had a row. She wouldn't come back to the hotel with me, so I snatched back the powder puff while she was using it and walked out on her.
So Doreen Winston was saved.
I was pretty annoyed. I never did take to a brush-off. So I hung around outside the club where I'd met Muriel Girton, and I didn't have long to wait. Muriel?
Who's that? Why, Donald Smithers.
Hello, honey. Come and have a drink.
Okay, let's go up to the club.
Well, I haven't any money till the morning.
That's all right, I've got plenty.
Have you? I don't believe it.
Then look at this.
A handbag opens, stuffed with notes. The fate of Muriel Girton is sealed.
Look, sweetheart, I'm not the type of man who takes money from a pretty girl. Not even from you. If you'll come back to my hotel, we can get all we want on my bill.
So back to the hotel in South Kensington. And at the last moment, Hyson stopped abruptly, as if struck by a sudden idea.
You'll have to go gently, honey. I just remembered. They won't serve drinks to visitors after hours. We'll have to go in the back way, where we won't be spotted.
So in they went. Not into the hotel where Hyson was staying, but into another one where he had stayed sometime previously. Hyson knew the geography of the place perfectly. He took his unsuspecting victim through the deserted trade entrance and up the servants' staircase to the first floor, where he found an unoccupied bedroom.
Okay, in you come.
Thanks. Donald, are you sure this is your room?
Of course, why?
It looks so empty. No clothes, nothing on the dressing table.
Well, I'm naturally a tidy person. Come and sit down.
This was an invitation to a drink.
No, there are better things to do than drink. Come on, sit down.
Now, look here. I may be tough, but I'm not...
Sit down.
Why, you beast! I'll scream!
There's a present for you.
Powder puff in your mouth. That'll keep it quiet. Now, my beauty, I've got you exactly where I want you.
Oh!
Again, those big, strong hands did their dreadful work. And when it was all over, Hyson removed the imp from his mouth, took her money, and returned unseen to his own hotel, where the chambermaid awoke him from a sound sleep at 8 o'clock the following morning.
Morning, sir. Not a very cheerful one, I'm afraid. I'll pull back the curtains. Oh, it's pouring outside, and nasty and cold. Now drink your tea while it's hot. And here's your newspapers.
Oh, the papers, yes. Oh, thanks. Thanks very much.
Not at all.
Papers. Now, let me see.
Woman found strangled in small hotel. Murder in South Kensington. Police are making widespread inquiries amongst the deceased friends and acquaintances in the hope of tracking down the murderer. The staff and members of a well-known Kensington club are being questioned this morning.
They are they? Then the chances are that the swine who split on me to the South African War Department is going to open his mouth again. He'll remember I was with her. I must get out of London quick.
It so happened that Hyson's panic was needless. The RAF officer was posted now, and he didn't come forward. Neither did the man who had introduced Hyson to his victim. But the scientists at Scotland Yard were becoming interested in traces of pink wool, which they found in the dead woman's mouth.
There's no doubt we've got particles of face powder on this fragment. So the murderer must have gagged her with a powder puff of all things.
But our own powder puff, which is white, was still in her handbag. That means the puff which was used by the murderer was taken away by him.
The fibers are quite new. There's no dust on them, and the powder hasn't had time to get into the material. Well, there's a thread of lace here, too.
We'd better let the superintendent know right away.
Superintendent Brandruth of Scotland Yard was then faced with the tremendous task of trying to trace an unknown man who might have bought a pink powder puff with lace trimmings. The information and the request for assistance was published in newspapers throughout the country, and Hyson read about it in the seaside town of Eastbourne. For the first time in his life, Richard Hyson panicked. In a split second, he saw the net closing in. He reasoned that Doreen Wimpson, the girl he'd bought the powder puff for, would very soon tell the police. If he was caught, he must plead insanity. To establish insanity, he must commit another murder. And this time, there must be no motive. So that night, in a deserted street on the outskirts of the town, he waited for an unknown victim. It was dark. The few houses were scattered well back from the road. For nearly an hour, nothing stirred, while murder waited to strike in the shadows. Go back, little girl, go back, go back. No, she must come on. He's waiting with those big, strong hands, tense and ready. The powder puff becomes a gag for the second time. The deed is done.
I might have got away with a lot if Doreen Wimpson hadn't remembered the powder puff.
She identified it, didn't she?
Yes, I knew she'd get me.
The chaplain's here, Hyson.
Tell him to go to blazes. I'll be waiting for him. Got another cigarette? No, thanks. I was picked up by the police the next day. Even then, I nearly convinced them that they'd got the wrong man. They held me from 3 in the afternoon until 2 the next morning before I told them I was Richard Hyson and proud of it. But still, they couldn't really prove I'd killed the 2 women until they had my coat pocket examined in the laboratory. Then they found traces of face powder and little shreds from the puff in it. Tough, that. Tough, wasn't it, Padre, eh? Why, what are you looking so mournful about? I'm the one to worry. So the hangman's here at last.
Yes, Hyson. It's nearly over.
Well, if nobody's going to say anything, I will. Come on, boys, get the straps on and let's get going.
And so Richard Hyson is led to his appointed place on the trapdoors of the scaffold. A white bag is slipped over his head. The rope lodges under his chin. And while the chaplain intones the service of the dead, the trapdoors open and Hyson goes fluttering down into the dark cavity below. Justice has been achieved. And all because of the faded pink powder puff which can be seen now in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment. Now here in person is Orson Welles.
Hyson loved the limelight, and he was nothing if not bold. He did serve in the Army and the Air Force, but his decorations and his tales of gallantry and action were all lies. He lived on lies, forever hoping that they would never catch up with him. But one by one, they did. And with them came the evidence. From the bad check he gave to the general in the Middle East, to the pink powder puff he gave to the one girl he admired in London. He hoped, of course, that the world would believe him to be insane. That would have spared him the final horror of the scaffold. And he might have been alive today in the grim fastnesses of Broadmoor, the criminal asylum. Was he mad? Well, you've heard the story. So another chapter of murder is closed, and the little pink powder puff, faded now, has its place in criminal history. And now, until we meet next time in the same place, I tell you another story about the Black Museum. I remain, as always, obediently yours.
The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles, is presented by arrangement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Radio Attractions, with original music composed and conducted by Sidney Torch, produced by Harry Allen Towers.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide. A warehouse where everyday objects, a phonograph record, a desk pad, a flashlight, all are touched by murder. Now here's a leather bag. That's a familiar object. A doctor carries a bag like this, or a bank messenger, or a payroll clerk. Neat, compact, light. Not the kind of thing to carry the weight of death.
You know, Sergeant, I like to think of all our cases as wrapped up neatly in a bag, like this.
One package. I know what you mean, Inspector.
This case now, it should have been open and shut. Like that.
Today, that leather bag can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum. In just a moment, you will hear The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. Now, The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Here we are. Here we are in the Black Museum, Scotland Yard's mausoleum of murder. It's by now a familiar place, at least to me. The vaulted ceiling with its sinister shadows, the stone floor, the endless shelves, the wooden cabinets, all familiar, all dedicated to the memory of murder. Here lies death, dormant now, silent, but still death. Mysterious, though carefully identified by the plain white labels. Repelling, though fascinating. The means to murder, arranged on exhibition. There's a symbol, created with skill for the rhythm of dancing, the sound of revelry. One fingerprint on this spun brass, and from it, the web was spun which brought a killer to his just and proper end. A revolver designed for death. Have you ever heard of Russian roulette or death by chance? There was no chance in the game where this revolver was used. The victim was picked. The murder was deliberate. The leather bag. Part of a puzzle. A jigsaw puzzle involving life and death and greed, which was never quite completed. A puzzle which began in the railroad yard at Almouth, in the coal district around Newcastle.
You'll get used to this way of doing things after a bit, Jimmy.
Hey, I like the work, Bill. Yardman and all. Only I keep wondering where the trains come from and where they're going.
You'll get over that, my boy, when you're coupled and uncoupled as many cars as I have. It'll be just routine. Train comes into the yard, like this one, climb aboard, check the carriages, each compartment like we're doing now, then break it up, reassemble, have it on its way again. Here now. What's all this?
Looks like paint to me.
Somebody spilled something on the carpet. Left whatever it is under the seat here. Yeah. Ain't that pretty? Have a look, Jimmy. It's a man. Dead.
I seen enough dead uns in the war to know about that.
This is for the police. Murdered. Sure enough.
His hat's here.
Don't touch anything. This is for the police, like I said.
The elder yardsman left his helper on guard and found his way to the nearest call box. Shortly after, uniformed constables took over, and within minutes, Inspector Hunt and Sergeant Lewis were on the spot.
Walking spectacles, Inspector, and the man's hat. Name, Warren King on the band.
Any other identification?
Passed to the premises of the Bannister Colliery.
Work for the mine company.
And a return ticket to Newcastle.
Yes, he won't be needing that with 5 bullet holes in his head. Well, nothing else here, but we'd better broadcast the information we have on him. Someone on the train may have seen him with someone else. Usual routine,
The
Sergeant.
steady, inexorable routine of the police. Notify the employer, the next of kin. Advise the newspapers and the BBC. Request information.
It's on the 9 o'clock news broadcast, Inspector, and I have a bit of information which may be of value.
Oh, what is it, Mr. Olney?
I saw King with another man in the station at Newcastle yesterday morning.
You're certain it was Warren King?
I've known him for years. Not well, but well enough to have seen him socially occasionally. I saw him with his little leather bag just as we went through the gate for the Almouth train.
Leather bag?
Why, yes. Friday's payday at the Bannister mine. King was payroll clerk. He always drew the cash to pay off the men and took it down to Orson himself.
Oh, and the man with him. Did you get a good look?
No one I knew, but I did have a good look at him. On the tall side. Brown suit, blondish hair, quite well built. I should judge he was about 35 years old, weighs about 180 pounds.
You got that description taken down, Sergeant?
Yes, sir.
Good. We'll have an all-station alarm on him and broadcast the description. It can't hurt at this stage of the game. Mr. Olney, would you...
Another step in the routine, another broadcast description. Wanted for questioning concerning the shooting on the Newcastle Almouth local. Now, of course, the rumors came in.
I saw him. On a bus it was. The exact description, even the brown suit. And he looked guilty, if you ask me.
In a pub it was, on High Street, talking to the bartender, flashing a roll the size of your fist. I'd know him again in a minute.
He was sitting across from me on the train, right in the same compartment. Me in the same compartment, that close to a murderer.
Of course, none of them had the right man. One person had a real lead, though. A woman friend of Warren King's.
I'd seen Warren occasionally. Nothing important, just platonic. But he did take me out, and I came to know some of his friends.
Maybe you have their names, please, miss?
As far as I know them. Fred only was one.
Yes, he's been in to see us.
Oh? Then there was Larry Jones and Joe Evans. He's the important one.
Why, especially?
Because he fits the description perfectly. Snappy dresser. Played the ponies, too, I think.
Oh, did he?
Yes, he offered to put down £1 or £2 for me occasionally.
Then you have his address?
Yes, I have. It's over Waddington Way.
Sergeant Lewis drove over to the address mentioned for one Joseph Evans. It was a polite inquiry.
Is there Joseph Evans lives here?
Why, yes, sir. Second floor front. You can go up. He's at home.
The sergeant climbed the stairs. All the usual questions came to mind. Was this another wild goose chase? How will this Evans behave? Need I expect trouble? The sergeant knocked on the door of the second floor front.
Yes? Mr. Evans?
That's right.
I'm Sergeant Lewis, CID. My credentials.
Oh, come in, Sergeant. I must say I've been expecting someone from your division. Oh, sit down.
Thank you.
Now, what can I do for you? It's about Warren King, isn't it?
As a matter of fact,
it was rather a shock reading about him in the paper, then all the wireless broadcasts. You see, I was on that same train. Spoke with him on the platform, as a matter of fact. Run into him as we both fought on.
Rather a disarming fellow, this Evans. Eager to discuss the whole case, but none too helpful, however, as Sergeant Lewis reported.
The man fits the description we broadcast, Inspector. He states, here, he put it down in writing. We talked briefly, Warren and I, then he went on to the first car while I stayed at the rear of the train. I was on my way to see Campbell of Blue Colliery, but I was into my paper so deeply. I'm a racing fan, and it was Grand National Day that I rode past Stannington, my station, and didn't quite realize it until the train latched at the curve outside of Morpeth. I got off at Morpeth and paid the extra fare.
Does that check?
Yes, sir. The ticket inspector at Morpeth remembers him.
What about Campbell, this man at the colliery?
I haven't been able to get him yet. He was in the shaft all morning.
Well, might be just as well, Sergeant, if you took the train down there and saw Mr. Campbell personally. One never knows what there is.
The Blue Colliery was no different than any other local coal mine in the area. Same black tipple, same cage, same coal dust. Mr. Campbell was the engineer in charge.
What's that, police, you say?
The CID Newcastle, sir. We're making inquiries concerning a Joseph Evans.
I know the man. What about him?
Did he have business with you this past Friday?
Not that I know of.
He says he was on his way down here to see you.
He never got here.
Were you expecting him? Were such visits a part of his regular schedule?
I was not expecting the man. He's a free agent. Comes and goes without hindrance. I've no control over his doing.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Was this a discrepancy in Evans' story? After all, he hadn't said that Campbell was expecting him.
If you don't mind, Mr. Evans, Inspector Hunt would like to ask you a few more questions at headquarters.
Evans was quite eager to cooperate. He went along with the sergeant while he was at headquarters.
Mr. Evans is quite probably furious by now. Held at the station, waiting for you, Inspector.
Yeah, no doubt. The place doesn't yield very much, does it?
Just the pawn ticket so far. Not unusual for a racing fan to have such things in his flat.
No, rather run-of-the-mill. We'll check them, though. One of the constables says you want me. You run this building? Run it and own it. I see. Would you mind telling us whether Mr. Evans was regular with his rent?
Oh, he is now. He paid the 3 months he owed me last Saturday.
And a man carrying a missing payroll was killed on Friday. Or did Joseph Evans make his killing on the Grand National? This would come out eventually, the inspector believed. For the present, the question of legal identification was paramount.
There will be 9 men in the room, Mr. Onip, all of the same description, approximately, as the man you told us you saw with Mr. King on Friday. We'll ask you to pick out that man if he's present.
I'll do my best, Inspector.
Well, Mr. Onip?
Silhouette from the left. That's the man I saw with Warren King.
That's the man we're holding. One question, sir. Did you see him enter the same car as Mr. King?
No, sir. I looked away for a moment. When I glanced that way again, they'd both disappeared. I assumed they were riding on a train together.
Thank you, Mr. Onip.
The identification parade had yielded some result. Yet all the time, the answer to the riddle lay in the plain leather traveling bag. Yes, that same bag which you can see today in the Black Museum.
In just a moment, we will continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Wasn't too much to go on as yet. Motive, opportunity, knowledge of the contents of the leather bag, and an identification. Nevertheless, the police felt that they had to take action.
We are holding you, Evans. You'll be formally arraigned in the morning and charged with willful murder.
Evans seemed shocked, but made the best of a bad job.
I understand, Inspector. But I didn't kill him. That's the truth of it. I didn't kill him.
In the meanwhile, some miles from Newcastle, a routine inspection was taking place at the bottom of the shaft of the Bannister mine.
Oh, why all this sudden interest in number 3? Hasn't been worked in years. Oh, these timbers seem sound enough.
Company's expecting to open up here again. Oh, this defense effort and so on. The shoring does seem all right. Let's get along.
Right. This gives me the creeps. Hello. What's this? Shine the lamp over this way a moment, Marty.
There you are. Oh, what's this done here?
Looks like a paymaster's bag, don't it?
Let's have a look inside. Nothing in it but a few coppers.
I'm thinking we'd do best to report this to the front office. What with old King getting himself done in and all.
Yes, you would do best to report this to the front office, gentlemen. You had no business opening that bag in the first place. The front office will turn the bag over to the police. Inspector Hunt and Sergeant Lewis will take it from there.
Chances are it is King's bag. It won't be too difficult to get it identified.
It's a long way from Marcus to number 3 shaft at Bannister.
Yes, I was thinking exactly that. What train did Evans say he took back to Newcastle?
The 11:52.
Well, it's mathematics and conjecture now, Sergeant. Did Evans have time to get to that shaft and back to Morpeth before 11:52?
I have the timetable and a road map, sir. I'll figure it.
Good. Sergeant, how do you feel about the trial?
None too easy, sir. You, sir?
Well, frankly, I'd feel a lot better if we had the gun and could tie it to Evans. Too many loose ends in this one, Sergeant. Uncomfortable.
Joseph Evans was none too comfortable himself, nor was his defending counsel. They had the usual conferences in the lawyer's room of the prison where Evans was held, pending the trial.
All right, man. You've admitted you spoke with King on the station platform. What then? Well, he went on about his business. Said something about the forward part of the train being closer to his exit gate at Olmouth. I went to the rear. For the same reason. The exit is at the rear at Stannington. But you didn't get off at Stannington. I told the police I missed the station. I was studying the racing form for the Grand National. I had a bet to make. Did you? I did. And I won. Worse luck. Then that's how you paid your back rent? Exactly. And not even a bookie stub to prove it. Once gambling is paid off in reverse. You win and you're in trouble. Can you find your bookie? No, he's disappeared. No trace. It's flimsy. But it would clean up part of what the Crown will claim was the motive. Look here, can't you possibly remember anyone who was in your compartment with you? I wish I could. I was in first. Sat at the window, facing forward. Lost myself in the paper. I noticed no one. Too bad no one noticed you. You haven't even a description? Nothing. Everyone was noticing me, not the other way round. King must have ridden alone with his murderer. No one seems to know anything about him or his trip, except that he was killed between Newcastle and Almouth. You worked for colliery too, didn't you? That's right. Then you knew that the wages are paid every second Friday. Of course. That's going to be hard to beat. It's not good. Your Mr. Campbell says he had no idea you were coming down. I was. That's the truth. You'd been there to see him before? Several times. Always on Fridays? If that was so, it'd help. I would like to say that. I can't. Campbell wouldn't bear me out. Oh, well. We'll keep at it. Looks like our only hope is someone who remembers seeing you in that last car. As I say, we'll keep at it.
It was a strange case. Everyone, prosecution as well as defense, seemed to be groping in the dark, making use of intangibles. People were observant, people were blind, people volunteered information, others stayed away, or didn't realize they were part of the evidence. The Crown built a fairly strong, circumstantial case.
I was present when identified. There is no question he was on that train that Friday morning.
He could have made it to the number 3 shaft, tossed the bag down, and made the 11:52 at Macbeth. I tried it myself one morning. I managed it walking. The next day, I tried it from Stannington. It was impossible from there.
Yes, sir. They knew each other, Mr. King and Mr. Evans. They all went on dates together 3 or 4 times. I can't imagine them meeting and not riding together on the same train.
Certainly having money trouble. I had no rent from him for 3 months. And all at once, he paid his due in a month in advance. The Saturday after this here murder.
It added up. Evans was there. The timing seemed to fit the evidence. The two men were friendly. Evans had plenty of motive for a payroll robbery. He took the stand in his own defense.
Then the truth, as you know it, and remember you're under oath, Mr. Evans, is that you did not ride with the deceased, and you did not either rob or kill him.
That is the exact truth, sir.
Thank you. Your witness.
Mr. Evans, you stated under direct examination that you worked for Blue Collar.
Yes, sir.
Then you know it is the custom to take the payroll monies from the business offices of the mines at Newcastle to the mines themselves?
Well, that has been the custom for many years. I did it myself for a time some years back. But I always drew the cash from the bank at Morpeth to avoid carrying the cash all that distance.
But it still was the custom in most cases to bring the money from Newcastle, and you knew about it.
It was not my custom.
You knew it was that of others?
Well, I never thought about it.
I submit, sir, that when you saw the leather bag the deceased was carrying, you realized its contents at once.
I never thought about that either. I had my mind on other things.
On your financial problem?
Among other things.
Which you hope to recoup by the Grand National Horse Race?
Well, one always hopes.
Isn't it possible your reason for going to see Mr. Campbell was to borrow money from him?
No.
What then? You must have had some good reason for this trip.
Well, it was in the line of business.
Will you state what line of business?
It was about some wages he was paying.
On that Friday?
I did not know if he paid on that Friday or the next one.
You were at the mine the week before?
I was.
Were the men paid that day?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Mr. Evans, are you familiar with firearms?
At one time I was a guard. I carried a revolver in those days.
Where is that revolver now?
I don't know.
Did you lose it? Or sell it? Or throw it away?
I gave it back to the company with my uniform when I became an inside worker.
Does the company own those firearms?
Yes.
Do you know where they're stored?
Yes, I do.
I ask you, Mr. Evans, did you take one of those revolvers with you on that Friday morning with intent to kill, use it against Mr. King, clean it and return it to its place before anyone noticed it was missing?
No, of course not. Why should I?
Can't you think of any good reason, Mr. Evans?
No, of course not.
I can think of several. Your financial problems, your intent to kill, even perhaps jealousy over Mr. King's attention to your mutual lady friend.
That is not so. There was nothing.
5 bullets were pumped into Mr. King's head. 1 would have been sufficient. This suggests the additional motive of revenge. Well, Mr. Evans?
I didn't kill him. I didn't. You can't make me say I did. I didn't do it. I didn't kill him. I didn't.
Joseph Evans was not a good witness under cross-examination. He admitted nothing. But the impression that he knew many things which were left unsaid was vivid even in the stenographic record of the trial. The jury retired after 3 days of listening to the evidence. 2.5 hours later, they returned. Joseph Evans rose in the prisoner's box and faced them. The clerk asked, had they reached a verdict?
We have.
What was their verdict?
Find the prisoner guilty.
No, I am innocent. I spoke the truth. I never touched him. I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
Who spoke the truth? The foreman of the jury or Evans? The only witness could never speak. And that witness, the leather bag, can be found today, as I've told you, in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment. Now here in person is Orson Welles.
As the inspector said at the beginning of this tale, this case should have been open and shut. It was not. Still, Evans was found guilty by 12 men in the jury box, and he paid for the murder of Warren King at 8 o'clock one morning in Newcastle prison. Despite the missing witnesses on both sides, the people who shared the compartment of that last car of the fatal train, the people Evans claimed could have cleared him, the people who may have seen him in the death compartment several cars forward, the people who might have placed him at the actual scene of the crime. And despite that missing silent witness, the death weapon itself. And now until we meet next time, in this same place, and I tell you another story about the Black Museum, I remain as always, obediently yours.
The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles, is presented by arrangement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Radio Attractions. The program is written by Ara Marion, with original music composed and conducted by Sidney Torch.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. A repository of death. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames which houses Scotland Yard is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a pin, a garden hose, a handbag, all are touched by murder. Here's a car tire. There were 3 others, all attached to a sedan. They were removed.
Great Scott, Inspector. Those vandals, they've stripped the car of everything.
Even the 4 tires, sir.
There's nothing left.
Except evidence.
Now today, one of those tires, the one that became a vital clue in the case, can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum.
Well, here we are in the Black Museum, Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. As here lies death. On the shelves, around the walls, death in many disguises. Here's a length of electric wiring. The protective insulation has been stripped away. The man touched it. He died. The jury found it was murder. Here's a card. Invitation to a party. The invitation was accepted. Death was the end of that. Here's the tire. It's an ordinary car tire. Once it belonged to a sedan that stood in a garage at South End. On a certain night some years ago, two men entered the garage quietly, after first forcing the lock.
There we are, Ted.
Good work, Harry. Look at her. Brand spanking new.
And she's ours once we get her out of the garage.
Quietly does it. I'll take off the brake. Right. We'll push her out into the street and down the road a bit.
Okay, I'm ready.
The object of this stealthy midnight visit was a new car. The two men pushed the automobile down the slope of the road, jumping in when the car began to gather speed.
All right, Harry. Get in.
Oh, nice going. Get us started, Ted.
Right.
Not a sound behind us. We got away with it.
It was easy. By morning, we'll have everything we want off this car.
Tires, spare parts, the seat.
And then we'll ditch what's left, eh? We'll make our fortune this way, Harry, my boy.
Sounds easy money.
It is. Come on, I'll show you what this car can do. Flat out.
A car traveling fast along the road to Eastwood. Its twin lights cutting beams in the darkness of the night. And a policeman cycling homeward.
Hello? What's that up there ahead?
What?
A man in the center of the roadway.
Oh, wait till our lights pick him up clearly.
It's a copper.
Oh? And he's got his hand up, signaling us to stop.
Ted, you don't think...
What, the word's got out this car's been pinched? Not a chance.
And what's this copper doing?
Oh, might want to lift home, you never know.
There's his bike at the side of the road. Ted, I don't like
Take it easy, will you? Bluff our way out. If he makes trouble, I can handle him.
Well, go easy on using that gun.
Leave it to me. Good evening, Constable. Anything the matter?
I'll have to ask you not to speed like that along this road, sir.
Were we speeding?
Well, I think you know you were, sir, you know. There's been a number of serious accidents around here lately.
Oh, dear.
Now, may I see your license?
My license?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, funny thing, I'm afraid I don't have it on me, Constable.
Then I'll have to request some other means of identification, sir.
Well, you know, I haven't anything on me at all.
Well, where are you going, sir, and where have you come from?
Well, we're just driving.
Is the car yours?
No, Constable. The car belongs to me.
Oh, I see, sir. Then, would you tell me its number?
It's on the front of the car if you want to see it.
I know the number, but do you?
Well, no, not offhand.
As I thought, sir. This is a stolen car.
Stolen?
You'd both better get out. Now, come on. I'll have to take down some particulars.
Yeah, what makes you think you can order us around, eh?
Get out, I said. Come on. I want your names. And put that gun away.
Say your prayers, copper.
Give me that gun.
Don't let him take it, Ted. Yeah.
I won't, don't worry. You ask for trouble, copper, you're going to get it.
A car drives away. A man lies dead on the roadway. A murder has been committed. Murder of a policeman.
Lovely morning, George.
You wouldn't think it to read a morning paper, Tom. Nothing in it but crime.
You won't find much crime round these parts.
Here, what's the matter with your dog?
Oh, he seems to have found something ahead there.
Well, it's not like him to get that excited. What's the matter with him?
Yeah, wait a minute, George.
Huh?
Unless I'm mistaken, it ain't only in the morning papers you'll find crime.
What do you mean?
Well, ahead there. Over by the side of the road. It looks like a man.
So it does.
Come on. Why, it's Charlie Acker.
He's dead.
By morning, Scotland Yard was represented at the scene of the crime by Inspector Clancy and Detective Sergeant Redding.
He was shot 3 times, Redding.
Nasty business, sir. Oh, here's a notebook lying on the ground beside him.
Yes, and he was holding a pencil in his right hand.
Well, that seems fairly straightforward, sir. He was about to take down some particulars from a person or persons whom he'd met.
The evidence suggests that, Sergeant.
But wait a minute, Inspector. His torch is here in his pocket.
Is it?
And there's no street lighting nearby. How could he have been writing?
By the light of a vehicle, presumably.
Of course, sir.
Either the headlights or the interior lighting of a car or a truck.
More likely the interior lighting, don't you think, Inspector?
Well, we'll work on that assumption first.
Which means it was a car.
There are some tracks here. You can see the skid marks. Now, they might be caused by a car starting fairly fast. I want those tracks photographed.
The photographs were duly sent to certain experts at Scotland Yard, and a report came back to Inspector Clancy.
Report from the yard, sir.
Yes, Sergeant Redding?
Those tracks were made by an Evans car.
An Evans, eh? Get a full list of all stolen cars within a 50-mile radius. We'll see if there was an Evans amongst them.
There were 2. One was found. Inspector Clancy interviewed the owner of the other.
Yes, it was taken the night before last, Inspector. Some bounder picked the lock of my garage and got away with the car.
I'll get a full description from you, sir.
Certainly, but I say, Scotland Yard doesn't usually go chasing stolen cars, does it?
Not usually, Colonel Fentress?
Oh, there's something else behind it, is there? Excuse me a moment. Hello, Fentress speaking. Yes. Just a moment. It's for you, Inspector.
Thank you, sir. Hello? Yes, Redding? At Raleigh. I see. Yes, I'll come down right away.
Something happened, Inspector?
An Evans car's been found, sir, abandoned in a ditch outside Raleigh. A new Evans. Index mark TW6120.
But that's mine, by Jove.
Then you'd better come along, sir.
They found the car, the police going over it for fingerprints. Curious crowd gathered around it. It was a vastly different car from the one Colonel Fentress had locked in his garage 2 nights earlier.
Great Scott, Inspector, those vandals, they've stripped the car of everything.
Even the 4 tires, sir.
There's nothing left.
Except evidence.
What do you mean, Inspector?
This was the car concerned in the murder of Constable Hacker on Eastwood Road.
My car? Concerned in that killing?
Come with me, Colonel. I'll show you the evidence to prove it.
That car is the first link in a long chain at the end of which is the murderer. And a further link is the missing 4 tires, one of which became the vital clue in the case. That tire can be seen today in the Black Museum. A car was found, abandoned in a ditch outside Raleigh.
You can see for yourself, Colonel Fentress, on the running board.
A dark stain there. It's blood?
Yes, it's blood. And see this?
A spent cartridge case.
It was found on the floor of the car.
Then my car was concerned in that poor fellow's murder?
We'll make confirmatory tests, of course. The blood stain will be checked against the constable's grouping, and the cartridge case will go to ballistics.
Well, these routine checks must be carried out. But Colonel Fentress knew, and Inspector Clancy knew, that the driver of the stolen car had taken part in the policeman's murder. And knowing this, The inspector was able to reconstruct the crime.
We don't know why Constable Hacker pulled the car up, Sergeant. He was cycling home. Perhaps the Evans car was speeding. Well, whatever the reason, he called on it to halt. And in the process of questioning, he came to realize the car was stolen.
He'd have brought out his notebook and pencil to take down some particulars, sir.
And for doing that, he was killed.
The picture of the crime was clear, but now, how to find the driver of the car? Nothing was known about him. There were no eyewitnesses. One man had seen the driver, and he was dead. Where would they begin searching?
We'll begin right here at the car, Sergeant.
It's funny about those tires, sir.
Very funny. But not only the tires are missing.
No, the toolkit's been taken, and the jack, and most of the spare parts.
The windscreen wiper's been removed, so have the headlamps and a car radio Colonel Fentress had installed.
Vandalism, sir?
Well, if it was vandalism, it was well planned, Sergeant.
Yeah.
Now, there are lorry tracks over there. The stuff was loaded on and driven away.
Car stealing, sir, for spare parts and tires.
A very profitable pastime. Now, what was taken out of this car would probably be worth £200-300 on the second-hand market.
Black market, sir, for the tires.
I wonder who handles second-hand parts and tires around this district. Come on.
Where to, Inspector?
The nearest garage.
They found a garage less than half a mile away. The proprietor, reassured that he was not under suspicion, proved to be helpful.
Spare parts and tires. Quite a few places round here who handles them, Inspector.
Could you list them for us, sir?
Certainly. Come into the office.
There were 6 names on that list. 6 visits to make. Sergeant Redding made them, posing as a driver in search of new tires.
Oh, good morning. I need 4 new tires for an Evans car. Can you help me out?
Williams and Sons were sorry. They hadn't had any tires to sell for months past. Field and Company said the same thing. So did Hammond and Barton, Kennedy and Sons. Then Sergeant Redding paid his last visit. The 6th name on the list. A small motor workshop on the road out of Eastwood. A car was being overhauled by a mechanic. A lorry stood on a vacant block of land beside the workshop. A sign at the front of the building said, Randolph and Burns, motor engineers and spare parts.
Yes, sir? I need 4 new tires for an Evans car. Can you help me out? An Evans? You own an Evans car? Oh, don't be chum, no. That's for the governor. I've been everywhere trying to get these tires. Well, I might be able to set you up. Of course, they're in short supply. We'll pay whatever you ask for them. Okay. Hey.
Oh, Jack.
Here a minute, will you?
What is it?
Fella here wants to buy some Evans tires.
Huh?
Chauffeur, aren't you, mate? Yeah, that's right. We can set him up, can't we?
No, we can't.
But Ted, he'll pay the right
I
price.
tell you we can't. We can't set him. How can we when we haven't seen an Evans tire in months?
But Ted...
People just don't bring us second-hand tires anymore, mister. Sorry.
The sergeant went out, went back to where Inspector Clancy was waiting for his report. Something he'd seen deep in the eyes of the man called Ted told him the search was at an end.
I don't know what spoiled it, Inspector. Perhaps he recognized me.
Perhaps he was just being cautious. You say the other man was ready to sell you the tires?
Ready and willing, sir. I think they're the ones we want. I'm almost sure of it.
All right, we'll make some further inquiries about them both. Now, first of all, their business registration. We'll get their full names from that.
The Business Records Office holds many secrets. The directors of England's leading companies, the balance of power in mighty industrial concerns. It also lists the many thousands of small businesses, companies, partnerships, sole traders, their trade and management personnel.
Here we are, Sergeant. Randolph and Burns, motor engineers, Eastwood.
Partners Edward Burns.
That'll be your friend Ted.
And Harold Randolph. Probably the other man I spoke to.
Well, take a note of their names. We'll see if the method index section knows them.
The method index section at Scotland Yard. That's a vast room of records. The walls are lined solidly with filing cabinets. Here are the details of all the crimes, from murder to petty theft. Here are the names and the aliases of all the criminals ever convicted in any English court. Filed and cross-filed for easy checking.
Those two men you asked me to check, Inspector Clancy.
Find anything on them, Severs?
There's no record for Harold Randolph.
What about the other one?
Burns, yes, we know him. Ted Burns, motor mechanic, 4 convictions. The first from my hometown, funnily enough, Oxford City Police Court.
The charge?
Stealing a motor car.
And what were the other 3 charges, Severs?
All connected with motor theft, sir. One was for removing spare parts from parked vehicles. Another time he was convicted for selling a stolen car.
That's all I want. Thank you,
sir.
Severs.
Inspector Clancy and Sergeant Redding drove back to Eastwood. On the road there, about 50 yards from the motor workshop, they waited. They saw 2 mechanics leave at 5:30 on their way home. Then, a few minutes later...
There he is, Inspector. That's Harry Randolph.
And he's alone.
It was a very peaceful scene. The casual passerby would have noticed a dark sedan slowing down beside a thick-set man in overalls.
Mr. Randolph?
Yeah? Oh, it's you. Still after them tires, eh?
In a manner of speaking, sir. This is Inspector Clancy from Scotland Yard.
Scotland Yard?
Get in, Mr. Randolph.
No, not me, Inspector. Now, you've got nothing against me.
On the contrary, we have a great deal against you. Get in.
Randolph was defiant at first, but when the advantages of turning King's evidence were pointed out to him, he became almost verbose.
It wasn't me who thought of the scheme. I was talked into it by him.
The scheme being to steal cars, sell their spare parts and tires, and abandon them?
Yeah. Ted said we couldn't get enough parts and tires to stay in business otherwise. He talked me into helping him to pinch the Evans.
Well, go on.
Well, everything was sweet, and then on the way back to Eastwood, the cop signals us to stop. Tells us we were speeding. He'd have got our names and all.
So you shot him dead?
I didn't do it. Ted shot him. The gun's hidden in the desk down at our works. His fingerprints will be on it. I told him not to shoot. He wouldn't listen. We took the lorry down and got everything we could from the car and brought it back.
And where is that stuff now?
Well, some of it we sold, and 3 of the tires went off late today. I would have sold a lot to the copper here, but Ted was wise to him. He can smell coppers.
3 were sold. Then 1 tire is left on the premises?
Yeah. But listen, won't you? I might have helped to pinch the car, but I'd nothing to do with the murder. Ted did that. He shot the copper!
A report on the tyre we found on the premises, sir. It comes from an Evans car, all right, and matches the tracks near Constable Hacker's body.
Then our case is complete, Sergeant. The gun was found, the fingerprints on the wheel rims belong to Randolph and Burns, and now the tyre. All right, Randolph, you've 1 more chance to help us. Where's Burns? Come on, you must have some idea.
Right. But you got to look after me.
I'm not promising anything. Where's Burns?
He's trying to get away overseas. I think he was heading for Liverpool. He was always talking about a pal of his who was a ship's mate.
Can you remember the name of the ship?
I think it was called the Briar Rose.
I have reason to believe your name is Ted Burns.
Ted what? You got the wrong man, Sam.
I don't think so, Mr. Burns. I have here a warrant for your arrest on a charge of murder.
Hey, you got nothing on me? You got no evidence?
Oh, yes, we have, Mr. Burns. All the evidence we need.
And today, that tire occupies a place in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment.
The murder of Constable Hacker on the lonely Eastwood Road was solved by the patient methods of Scotland Yard and by the talking of Harry Randolph, whose verbosity put him behind bars for many years to come and brought his unholy friend Ted Burns to the last walk, the end of a rope, one morning at 8 o'clock. A crook's plan misfired into murder. And neither Burns nor Randolph had the talent for outwitting the men of the yard. So it was that another chapter of murder was closed. Another record added to the method index section. And another exhibit, the car tire, was added to the Black Museum. And now until we meet next time in the same place and I tell you another story about the Black Museum, I remain as always obediently yours. This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames which houses Scotland Yard is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a paperweight, a woolen muffler, an old-fashioned hat pin, a drinking glass, all are touched by murder. Here's a bit of frosted glass. It's a familiar object. You've seen such glass before in the upper panels of the doors of older houses, and perhaps the one in which you live. Lets in more light, the owner used to say. One man climbing to his old-fashioned apartment said to his son,
Hello, what's this? Glass on the landing?
From the door, Dad. It looks like the frosted panel fell out.
Yes, and pretty jaggedly. Be careful, son. Those shards are sharp.
Well, today the glass shards can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum. In just a moment, you will hear The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. Now, The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
And here we are, in the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. Yes, here lies death. And here's a pacifier. Nippled end, ivory ring. This in the Black Museum? Yes. Because it seems there was a will. And where there's a will, there's a way. Even to infanticide. Here's a pair of andirons. Brass, graceful in pattern, clean in execution. Execution. Observe the shining brass of this one, the ugly blotch on the other. A woman is pushed violently. Her head strikes with malice aforethought. This was murder. Nice, here we are, the glass shards. They're sharp, pointed. Dangerous to life and limb, even in themselves. Here they are, glistening, gleaming in their whitely frosted danger. Once they were part of a whole. The glass panel, as I told you, of an apartment door. But we'll come to that. Let's begin this tale with the ringing of a doorbell.
Maybe no one is home. Well, we'll try again.
Sorry to have kept you waiting.
Sorry to have disturbed you, ma'am. I've been sent looking for a chauffeur. Chap named Simmons.
There's no one here by that name. And I can tell you, sir, there's no one by that name being in this neighbourhood. Well, not in my memory, and I've lived here about now on 20 years.
Oh, well, thank you, ma'am. The garage really works. The Beacon, it's called. Well, they'll have to find another errand boy if they can't give me better steers than this. Well, good day, ma'am.
Good day. That's a bit strange. There's no Beacon garage in this neighbourhood.
Of course, this was not a neighborhood for garages and items of that sort. This was strictly residential. Mostly semi-detached houses with a bit of garden and an occasional block of apartments, or flats as they're still called in London. Into one of those apartment houses came Charles Fly and his son, Charles Jr., home after their respective days' work at business and college.
When will they put lights in these stairs, Dad?
Not if someone breaks a leg in the dark. I just hope it isn't your mother.
So do I. Well, watch the landing. Dad turns just ahead.
I know. Hello, what's this? Glass on the landing?
From the door, Dad. Looks like the frosted panel fell out.
Yes, and pretty jaggedly. Be careful, son. Those shards are sharp.
I said, do you suppose Mother let the door slam so hard the glass broke?
Well, I'll ask her when we get inside. Your key handy?
Right here, Dad.
Thanks. Funny, I've never known your mother to use the chain on the door in her life.
Oh, with the glass broken like that?
What good's the chain? I can reach in and flip off the chain from me through the broken glass.
Dad, there's someone in there.
Oh, your mother, probably. No, it's not. It's a man. A little fellow. Junior, get on down to Riverdale Road. There's a police box there. Call him, quickly.
What about you, Dad?
Go on now. I'll stay here and watch him. Hurry.
Yes. All right, if you say so.
Chain's off now. Why not? He's only a little fellow. Here now. What are you putting in my suitcase?
You shouldn't have come in, Governor. It won't do you a bit of good. I'm leaving with your suitcase and what I've packed in it.
Drop it bag. I can handle you. No! Oh.
So foolhardy. Mr. Fly should have stayed outside. He might have stayed alive. As it was, when the police did arrive with Charles Fly Jr., Senior was very dead. The call to Scotland Yard was automatic after that. Inspector Howard proceeded with the preliminary questioning as his technical experts combed the apartment.
I know you had quite a shock, my boy, but we need your help, and right now.
I'll try my best, Inspector.
We've checked the apartment. The intruder, whoever he was, had packed a suitcase and was about ready to leave.
It's Dad's own. It was his suitcase.
All right. Now, is there anything else you know of that's missing?
Mother said something before she collapsed about her bracelet. I looked, it's missing.
Can you describe it in detail? On items like that, we publish it in the Yard's Daily Gazette. It's circularized to every station, jeweller, and pawn shop in England.
Well, it was gold, about an inch wide, engraved with a kind of floral design, and there were 25 diamonds, small ones, in the pattern. Dad gave it to Mother on their 25th anniversary.
I see. Very good. Now, you've been in excellent health, and you're certain he was a short man.
Well, I saw him through the broken pane. He was just about 5 feet tall. Quite a little fellow. I guess that's why Dad went in after him. Dad didn't know he had a gun.
Housebreakers try to stay away from guns in England. The penalties are too severe. Yes, Sergeant?
No M.O., sir. Just the broken pane of glass.
Thank you. Anything beyond that first shell?
Not a thing. One shot was fired, that's all.
No M.O., sir?
Means of operation. Anything that's recognizable. Most of these people have a kind of trademark. Completely subconscious, but it helps us to find them.
Too bad there's nothing, then.
We'll do our best. All right, Sergeant. I want the neighborhood canvassed. Did anyone notice a small man sounding the drum? Did anyone see a small man leaving the premises? And check every carnival, fair, and circus for a small fellow who's a sharpshooter. 1 cartridge, 1 shot, and bullseye. Got that, Sergeant?
Aye, sir.
We can make a start anyway, and here's hoping...
Police routine. Sounding the drum. That's a new term. What does it mean? Listen to the sergeant as he canvasses the neighborhood.
Tell me, ma'am, in the past day or so, has anyone rung your bell and asked for someone who doesn't live here and left in a hurry?
Do you follow the term now? It's what Americans would call casing the joint. Find out if anyone's home by ringing the bell. If there is, make an excuse and get away fast. If there isn't, find a way to break in and steal whatever may be lying about within easy reach. It's simple, effective, very professional. But the police are professionals, too.
Excuse me, sir. I'm from the CID. Sergeant Gordon. My credentials.
Oh, what's up?
I'm making inquiries to see if anyone's called at your house in the past few days.
What? Oh, no. We've all been away the past 2 weeks. We only got back today.
Oh, well, thank you then. Sorry to trouble you.
Yes?
Forgive me for troubling you, ma'am. I'm Sergeant Gordon, CID. My credentials.
Oh, what's happened? We aren't in any trouble, are we?
Now, calm yourself, ma'am. No trouble for you, at any rate. It's just that I wanted to ask you a question or two.
Oh, yes.
Could you tell me if anyone has called at your house during the past few days and asked for someone who doesn't live here, and that if they were in?
What a silly question.
No, ma'am, it's a very serious question. So, will you put your mind to it?
Well, no. I'm absolutely sure. Nobody.
Yes? Sergeant Gordon, CID. My credentials.
Yes?
Has anyone rung your bell in the past few days and asked for someone who doesn't live here?
No.
Thank you.
Yes?
Sorry to disturb you, ma'am. I'm Sergeant Gordon, CID. My credentials.
Oh, please. Yes?
Did you... that is, has anyone rung your bell in the past few days and asked for someone who doesn't live here?
Oh, that'd be a foolish thing. Why, yes, there was. Just yesterday afternoon. He asked for a chauffeur or something. Said the fellow worked at the Beacon Garage.
And you remembered this?
I certainly did.
Why, ma'am?
Well, because there's no such place hereabouts as the Beacon Garage. And I ought to know. I've lived here 20 years.
I see. Rather a foolish error.
Now that you mention it, I'm not sure that it was an error. He seemed rather a nasty little man.
Oh, is that so? Why?
Too dapper, too quick. Much too little for a man. He was shorter than I am, and I'm only 5'2".
Could you describe him in more detail, perhaps?
Well, he had dark hair, grew very low on his head, and his eyes were sort of shifty. Blue, but shifty.
Uh-huh.
The kind of thing you see in the cinema. You know, in those pictures about bookmaking and that.
Anything else, ma'am?
Well, not that I remember. Not offhand, at any rate.
2 people still living have seen this little man, the dead man's son, and the woman at whose door he sounded the drum. A description is in hand, 2 descriptions, which tally in every point. And then Sergeant Gordon came into Inspector Howard's office with another fact, a very solid fact.
What's this, Sergeant?
The weapon, sir. Found it behind the hedge of number 21, 3 houses up from the flats where Flyer was killed.
How'd you get onto it?
We found a young fellow who'd been walking his girl past the flats on her way from the bus. This little man ran out of the flats, almost knocked the girl over, but he kept going. Our young fellow turned around to protest, saw him throw something over the hedge. We looked. There it is.
Nasty little gun. Well, shell jammed in the chamber.
No wonder he fired only 1 shot.
But he pulled the trigger twice. Well, we can drop our search in the circuses, Sergeant. I doubt if this fellow is the sharpshooter we thought he was. I think now we'll concentrate on classification by size. Shall we get to it, Sergeant? We seem to have our work cut out for us again.
Surely the picture takes shape. Dim at first, as if seen through frosted glass. Like the glass shards to be seen today in the Black Museum.
In just a moment, we will continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Again, it's compounded of hard work, good police training, and a little luck. They start with nothing, this time with a wrong theory that their man is a sharpshooter. They have to abandon this, and they start fresh with the dullest and therefore the hardest kind of police routine, checking the files.
He's a little man. Everyone's agreed on that. Ask Criminal Records to send us the dossiers on every man we have on file under 5 feet 2 inches in height.
Carefully, the inspector in charge and his sergeant comb through these dossiers, and finally, by reason of cross-checking, this one in jail at the moment of the crime, that one in some other part of the country, others with perfect alibis, the list of little fellows is reduced to 4.
You take these 2, Sergeant. I'll work over the others. Anything that rings a bell, the smallest detail.
Yes, sir.
For over an hour, the 2 men are silent, reading, thinking, trying to relate something in the files to the facts that they already have. And then they exchange dossiers and start again. By this time, the lamps are lighted. The Thames flows like black glass outside the window of the inspector's office. All at once.
I may have something, sir.
Which file?
Larry Mason. His nearest relatives, an uncle and an aunt, are recorded here as living in Beacon Road.
Does that mean anything to you, Sergeant? It doesn't to me.
I'll see it in my report in passing, Inspector.
Uh-huh.
When I talked with the woman who'd seen the fellow sounding the drum, he told her the chauffeur he was looking for worked at the Beacon garage.
Oh.
And she made quite a fuss over the fact that there is no such garage in the neighborhood. She was quite emphatic about it.
Ah, interesting. Let me see the description. I see. 5 feet 1.5 inches, the smallest of the lot. Beacon garage, eh? And relatives on Beacon Road.
Not important, perhaps, and yet all important, as the inspector thought it through.
We'll say a man needs a false name at a sudden moment. He says the first thing that comes into his mind. It seems rather natural that the place his nearest relatives live should be lurking somewhere just below his consciousness. Well, it's mighty slim, but it's worth a try.
And having decided it was worth a try, Inspector Howard and Sergeant Gordon set out to trace their prime, if tiny, suspect.
Mason? Yes, he lived here.
Oh, lived? You mean he's left?
He didn't leave.
What then, Mum? Did he die?
He could have, for all I care. I threw him out. Didn't pay his rent for 3 weeks. I can't afford deadheads, I can't.
Have you any idea where he's gone?
No. What's more, I don't care.
Next point of inquiry was the Beacon Road address and Larry Mason's uncle.
About your nephew, Mr. Mason.
What about him?
Have you any idea of his whereabouts?
Who wants to know?
My name is Howard, Inspector, Scotland Yard.
In trouble, is he again?
We're not certain yet. He may be. We'd like to talk to him.
Well, if you find him, I'd like to talk to him too. Long enough to tell him not to come round for me for help.
Sergeant Gordon visited the pubs and hangouts where Larry Mason had been known to spend his time. In one of them, he found a friend of Mason's.
Larry? I ain't seen him in a long time. Not since he was sent away for breaking and entering. He hasn't been round at all. And I can't say I'm sorry. No? Why not, friend? He worked for me when I had my license and was making a book legitimate. He was my clerk, see? Then one day he walks off, just like that, with 10 quid. I don't expect to see him again. He knows that little job cost me my license. And he knows what'll happen to him if he shows his face in here again.
Not much to go on, or to find a man, except the brush strokes that fill the picture of the little fellow's character. Unreliable, a thief, where his friends are concerned. Now, think back a minute. Remember the Daily Gazette the Yard publishes with descriptions of stolen goods, missing persons, and so on.
Teletype from the Lancashire Police, Inspector. They've got the bracelet in the fly case. A pawnbroker turned it up.
Good.
It was offered to him by a tall, heavy-set fellow with a peculiar circular scar on his right cheek.
That sounds like Dick Lowry. Let's have Mr. Lowry in here, shall we?
Mr. Lowry was quite glad to oblige. He wasn't in hiding or anything like that, not Dick Lowry.
Where'd you get it, Lowry? The inspector wants to know.
Where'd I get what?
The bracelet you pawned in Bolton.
I found it.
You found it, did you?
That's what I said. Anything wrong in that?
If you found it, no. We think you bought it.
Oh, now, what would I buy a bracelet with sparklers in it for? My girls don't go for that sort of thing.
You sold it, didn't you?
Oh, of course. Why not? Fella can do with a spot of cash.
Larry.
Yes, Inspector?
You may want to know that bracelet is involved in a killing.
A killing, is it? Why, that dirty little...
Oh, go on, Lowry.
Start talking, Lowry. Accessory after the fact in a murder can be very nasty, you know.
All right. I bought it. I paid a good price, too.
From whom? Lowry from whom?
Larry Mason.
Well, at last. Where'd you see him, Larry?
Oh, the usual place. Dog track. With him, it's horses or dogs when the nags aren't running.
Finally, the patience was bringing results, as it almost always does. Canvass a whole neighborhood, comb through hundreds of files, slowly, narrow the possibilities, and finally, a direct relation is established between the crime and some person who may have committed it. After that, find the person. In this case, it was the dog tracks. South End.
He's not here, Sergeant.
The White City Raceway.
Not a sign, Inspector.
Wembley.
They know him here, but he hasn't been around in weeks.
And back to South End.
No luck again, sir.
No luck is right. Tell me, Sergeant, do you suppose a pint of ale will help our patients any?
This one seems rather decent, Inspector.
Yes, let's get on with it. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to come against you.
That's all right. No harm done.
Hold it, young fella. I think I know you.
Do you? Where from?
You're Larry Mason.
Not me. My name's Leonard Martinson.
Sorry, you'll have to prove your identity. We're from Scotland Yard.
A twist of luck, a turn of chance. Two weary policemen in search of a relaxing moment run across the killer they've been hunting for weeks. At the yard, Larry Mason was not having a particularly relaxing time of it.
Do you insist on denying you're Larry Mason?
I do.
Look, Mason, you've been away for a while. Now you know about these things. Your fingerprints are the prints on Mason's record. Dick Lowry swears he bought the bracelet from you. Your landlady and your former bookmaking associate have identified you. Now let's have no more nonsense.
I ain't giving you a thing. Just because I'm small don't mean you can push me around.
Ah, you'd better tell us the whole story, Mason, and stop this nonsensical denial. You'll go to trial anyway, you know. And the more you lie now, the harder it'll be on you later. Now speak up, Mason.
You know, they get stubborn streaks sometimes. They read somewhere somehow that the best defense is to admit nothing, not even their own identities. So they firmly shut their mouths and refuse to talk about anything except the weather. The sergeant knew they had a case, a good case. Inspector Howard came in to help.
I look at it this way, Mason. You can't do yourself any harm. We've got the evidence, we've got the gun. We're in the process of tracing it to you right now. The woman you spoke to will identify you in court. You had the bracelet. You've no alibi worth mentioning. You'll hang on what we've got, Mason, unless you've something which makes it manslaughter in place of murder.
All right. It was an accident. I never used a gun before. Never even had one.
The first time is always one too many when it comes to guns. Now keep talking. How was it an accident?
I broke the glass, see? After nobody answered the bell. I stuck my hand in. It was a cinch to open the door. I worked fast, but this fella come home early or something. I tried to make the back door. No luck. It was locked with a key.
So you had to come to the front.
He was a lot bigger than me. I pulled the gun because I wanted to scare him, that's all. He jumped me, hit me with something. I blacked out. That's it. I blacked out. Didn't even hear the gun go off.
And when you came to, Mason?
He was dead on the floor. I got out of there as fast as I could get. It was an accident. I'll swear it was an accident.
What's your opinion, Sergeant?
It's a good story, but it won't wash.
Why not? That's what happened. Why not?
It's very simple, Mason. You blacked out as you pulled the trigger. Therefore, you fired only once.
Yes, sir. Only once?
Sorry, Mason. You pulled that trigger twice. There was a shell jammed in the firing chamber. You pulled the trigger at least twice. That's no accident, Mason. That's murder.
Yes, the case was complete. Each part in its correct place. And those glass shards I told you about, those two are in their correct place. In the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment. Now here in person is Orson Welles.
The jury quite agreed with Inspector Howard. That was no accident. And so in due course, Little Larry Mason, the bookie's clerk who made the fatal error of carrying a pistol, went the way of most murderers at 8 o'clock one summer morning. Larry Mason's luck had run out, or had it? It was reported, you see, that as he walked to the scaffold with its 13 steps and waiting rope, Mason murmured to his guards, they had to do this now on June 6th, Derby Day, and me with a few shillings riding on Armstrong in the big race. Curiously, although Mason wasn't available to collect on his bet, Armstrong was the winning horse at 53-1. And now until we meet next time, we meet in the same place and I tell you another story about the Black Museum, I remain as always obediently yours.
The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles, is presented by arrangement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Radio Attractions. The program is written by Ara Marion, with original music composed and conducted by Sidney Torch. Produced by Harry Allen Towers.